Why do you say that, Father? You aren't afraid, are you?
No, but I respect some of the superstitions of others. Often they are founded in fact.
Broadcasting from our Sanctum Sanctorum in Venice, California. This is the Sixth Sense Society. I'm your host, Krista, here with our creator and producer, Michael. And tonight, or today I should say, we will be talking to Mystic Mitten Paranormal. So welcome, ladies. Before we get started, we're going to have a few messages.
Hi, everybody. Just want to let you guys know we've got some great shows coming up in the month of December. Next week, our friend Humberto Braga is going to be back, and he's going to be talking about a website that he's creating to link psychics and mediums and healers and all kinds of cool people for networking, and that should be an interesting project. And then our good friend David Ullman will be back. He has just released his book, The Ghosts of Cielo Drive. So he will be talking about the Manson murders and Sharon Tate and some of the happenings at his place, and he's always a character, so we're looking forward to having him back. And then we're taking a couple weeks off for the holidays. We'll be back with our Cosmic Weather at the end of the month. And our first show in January, we're pretty excited. It's going to be Lon Milo Duquette, the famous occultist. And he's going to be talking about the tarot deck he just released in his book. And God knows where the conversation will go with him. He's just a lot of fun. So we're pretty excited about all that. So, and then we've got guests coming up all the way through February. We've got our good friend Lama Kathy Wesley is going to be back. Krista's dad's going to be back talking about his shamanic training. All kinds of cool stuff coming up. So check our website, sixthsensesociety.com, SIXTH, all spelled out, sixthsensesociety.com, and you can get all the latest info and whatnot. And if you enjoy our show, there is a donation button now. If you want to become a subscriber for the cost of a cup of coffee a month, you can help our show a little bit in covering some of the cost and upgrading our gear, and we would definitely appreciate that. And if you can't afford it, we'd love to have you anyway. So come by and listen to us and our podcast, and it's available as a podcast on Spotify. Just search Sixth Sense Society. We'll pop right up. And we're looking forward to our topic tonight and our good friends, Mystic Mitten Paranormal, back from Detroit. So with that, I'm going to kick it back to Krista, and have a great show, guys.
Great. Thanks, Michael. And welcome back, at least Hillary. Jessica wasn't able to make the last show in July. So welcome here tonight, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure. So I thought we would start a little bit maybe by getting to know Jessica, as we did before with Hillary. Perhaps, how you got involved in the paranormal to begin with.
So when I was growing up, I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, and my grandmother was a firm believer in basically everything from just legends that she believed based on her culture to aliens to ghosts. So, and she was the type person and I was the type believer too, and I love my grandma so much that if grandma said it's true, it's gotta be. So I grew up listening to her stories, which kind of started the spark in me to start chasing it. And then obviously I love paranormal television. So growing up watching those shows from the very beginning definitely started that as well. But it's really cool though, getting to see a shift because when I was a kid and, Ghost Hunters first started on television, like I couldn't talk about it. I'd be judged because my friends would make fun of me for watching these weird shows, and now being able to be so comfortable and open with everything is just such a relief, and it's just so nice. I just want to make paranormal normal. Let's talk about it and let's just be open.
That's interesting. Your grandmother was also into aliens. You don't always get the two together. So do you believe in aliens too?
I can tell you that I've seen things in the sky that I don't have an explanation for. So I'm not saying that it's not true. Have I ever met an alien? I'm not sure. I could be running into them daily. Who knows, like Men in Black style. But I've seen some UFOs in my day that are completely unexplainable. And I don't really think until you have an experience like that, even with like with ghosts as well, until you have an actual experience yourself, it's kind of hard to say that you're a believer until you actually see something. But I've seen some crazy stuff in my day.
Yeah, I bet being around all that water, it seems like around large bodies of water, there's a lot of sightings.
Absolutely.
And what is your particular role on the team?
Oh, geez. So whereas Hillary, she does most of, everything. I like to say we're Pinky in the brain. She's the brain, and I just belong to the ride. But I'm kind of like case manager. So, I'm spending a lot of time in Facebook groups, working with our clients directly, reaching out to people, setting up residential cases, as well as businesses as well.
Jessica does a great job of being kind of the intermediary between, the people who contact us and who might be afraid or worried about talking to somebody about their experiences. And she does a really great job of kind of being the first point of contact and saying, hey, it's okay. I know exactly how you feel. I spent the last decade of my life, thinking that, and we're here to help you. So she's a fantastic case manager.
A counselor, basically.
I was going to say, that's interesting. So people are nervous is it because they think they'll be made fun of, or is it also because some of it is filmed, or a combination?
So I think a lot of times people just don't want to be thought of as crazy, and being able to comfort our clients and let them know that, these things happen to other people. This is a totally normal thing. It's just not as normal to talk about it as we would like it to be. But I think it's also important to go into a residential case and where they might be like terrified or uncomfortable about that spirit. And usually when we leave, they look at that spirit as more of a roommate that shows up time to time rather than, like somebody that they don't necessarily want hanging around.
That's that kind of healing aspect of working in this field.
Absolutely.
So, and I remember we talked with Hillary, and Hillary particularly, I remember you said you liked sort of the ghost box a lot as one of the tools. And do you have any favorite tools that you like?
I am partial to the K2, just because it's fun, it's easy. Plus at the same time too, it's a really good device to kind of get like a base reading of the location, because there are so many natural causes that might lead to hallucination. I'm having a hard time with words today, so I'm just going to put
You're doing great.
You might experience some things because you have bad wiring in your house, ultimately. So using that to just kind of get a base reading to understand if there's some actual reason why things are happening that's not necessarily paranormal, that's a really useful tool for that as well. So that is my personal favorite, is the K2. All EMS detectors are great, but that one is just my favorite.
So Hillary, what have you've been up to lately, the two of you, with investigations? Since we last talked, it was in July that we had you on.
I feel like it's been a year.
I know.
Honestly, so much. Jessica and I have packed in so much in the last couple of months. It's like, honestly, we're our heads are spinning, and we're kind of like dizzy from all of it. We did our first public investigation too with the Anatomy of Death Museum in Mount Clemens, Michigan, which was a really interesting experience for us too, because it wasn't really like the typical public investigation, I guess, or at least one that, the people who had come to hang out with us had experienced before. So rather than being fixated on the location necessarily, we had an opportunity to try some of the paranormal experiments and apply some of that thinking to investigating some objects and physical artifacts. And so that was a really interesting experiment to include some of the public in on.
So does that mean the public could just come freely and watch? Is that what you mean by a public investigation?
So we had a handful of people come, and we were given a guided tour of the collection. The Anatomy of Death Museum it's kind of an attraction as much as it is a museum. It's been put together by a local collector, and he offers tours to the public. You can walk through, you can take a self-guided tour, and there's different information about all of these artifacts he's collected. So there's different human medical remains. There are different tribal artifacts from different headhunting and like very execution-driven tribes, things like that. So he has a lot of artifacts that are used to educate people from a scientific perspective, mostly about death. And he's worked in the funeral industry and answers questions and kind of takes you through different processes of what happens to your physical body after you die. So it was interesting. He's kind of a guy who's not sure what he believes about, paranormal things. But his business partner, Lyle, is very spiritual, I guess we could say that word. I don't know if he would be angry at us. But he's very open, and he has a lot of experiences. And if you've watched our Alley Cat Junk Teaks video, he is the one who walks through with us. He's kind of the main guy running that operation for them over there. And so it's very interesting too, just kind of like to see where both of them are coming from and interacting with us and just trying to have these experiences that maybe are kind of reminiscent of a seance in a certain way. So they came in, we had our tour. Jessica and I investigated that place on our own too, and we did a spirit box session and some things like that. So we wanted to get the people who came in on that and give them a chance to try that. So we tried an Estes method experiment. We had the blindfolds and the proper headphones and said, if you've seen this on TV, now's your chance to try it. So where that might be very scary for some people, and we weren't sure how it was going to go over, the people that were there jumped into it.
Yeah.
It was very interesting to watch.
I think out of all the folks that we had that were there was only one person that was like, okay, I think this is too much for me. But other than that, a lot of people really enjoyed it. And which was really cool about this too, and unique about this location in comparison to many other public investigations, like in different ticketed events and things like that, we were able to kind of break off into smaller groups. So not only were we having really awesome experiences tied to the location itself or the different artifacts, but we're also having personal things too. Like one of the attendees had a loved one that was coming through. So being able to see connections and kind of coach them and show them how to use these devices and walk them through that process, as well as kind of being a comfort for them when these things are happening, was really awesome. And it was very overall very well received.
We were finding if we can set up the opportunity and provide people with these same tools that we're using, or set up these different experiments, then oftentimes they will have kind of their own messages come through, or their own experiences, or crazy off-the-wall things that we thought had nothing to do with anything we were doing, but we're helping people facilitate having some of these mystical experiences, we'll call them, I guess.
So then they might feel more confident when they go home to try something on their own.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's really cool. I did watch the Alley Cat, what is it pronounced? Junk Teaks? Alley Cat Junk Teaks investigation. That, and I know who you're talking about with Lyle. He said he saw 3 full body apparitions at that place, and it was really interesting. And tell us a bit about the phone call there.
Oh, so that was crazy. And I was so excited for something like that to happen to us. And one thing that's really cool too, like after the fact, is like that building was once used for a phone company. So the fact that we were having like weird
telecommunication
calls, was just crazy. So the phone kept ringing. It was like a weird time of day. No one really knew that we were even going to be up there doing this and everything. And the phone kept ringing from like an anonymous number, and like it was just so crazy. And the whole time that was like the time and the sequence of events or whatever that like led us to that point, it was just wild to be able to experience.
That was like a landline phone, right?
It was, and it was actually next door, so it wasn't even technically in the business. It was all one building, and those other people that were with us were the employees from the building next door. So it was their phone that was actually ringing. So it was 11 o'clock on a Sunday night when we got there. No one knew we were there, and Lyle had been live streaming a little bit, but from the other location. So unless it was someone that knew them, and you'll have to be honest with us and tell us if you're listening to this. You were joking around, but otherwise we have no explanation. And Jessica picked it up too.
Yeah, and I answered the phone, and like there was like, normally how sometimes you can like hear something on the other end or some sort of background noise. There wasn't really anything except there was like a click noise. And that was the only thing that I had heard on the other side. But it was cool too because like I was, we watch everybody on YouTube too. So like seeing these things happen to other folks that do similar things on YouTube, and then having it finally happen to us was really exciting.
Because no one believes it. It's hard to believe. Yeah, like someone's just.
And that's the thing. And like. And that's how it is with all of this, though. Until you're really there, like,
You don't know.
There's always going to be people that question everything.
Sure.
Yeah, and I mean that's life in a way. You want to have the experience, you want to be open, but yet skeptical. I think it's, I feel like I was probably initially when I first saw, what people did for ghost hunting, maybe, I don't know, when did I see my first meters? Maybe, when was it? 5 or 8 years ago. First, I kind of thought, I don't know, and then when you start doing it and you have that, interaction and you, since I believe there's a lot of synchronicity that happens sometimes that you have to kind of count that. It is a different thing, so when you have hands-on and it's really fun. I think I haven't really been scared ever yet. Maybe a little bit afraid to stay in a room by myself, but you don't know what's going to happen when you're by yourself, it seems like.
Certainly, you never know.
It just seems like that's when, if anything creepy, that's from watching movies.
Right. The fight or flight instinct. I think, and I've been reflecting on this recently too about like, okay, this, and the aesthetics too, and, the different media and even some of what we do too. We like it, the spooky stuff, it's fun. But, what I find really scary about a lot of the work that we do when we've really gotten into this is kind of just how bleak reality can be in a certain sense. When we do these really in-depth historical researches, Jessica and I have been honing our skills, trying to kind of learn some genealogy stuff. And now we need to learn how to use like microfiche. That's like our generation has no clue.
Oh, right. Yes. We use that.
Totally foreign, but we're having a blast. It's like, what other opportunity would we have had to learn how to do this or look at some of these things? But like, it's like the scary thing to me is kind of realizing what people will do to each other and like some of the facts, the historical facts, crime papers, things that we find. And that's the scariest thing. Thinking about that. Yeah.
People are scarier.
Yeah.
Well, that's a really good point. And maybe that's why sometimes it's easier to go and deal with the dead, even though they might have horror stories. The story's over in a sense. You're not experiencing it per se, directly. But, it's similar to watching like homicide shows. We found that people murder people for no good reason way too often, way more than you think. You're like, oh my God, they killed that person for that reason. And, you can look in the spiritual aspect of it. I suppose that's legitimate, but there's no real proof of that, whether it's like some kind of karmic relationship or then maybe there's a deeper story, a deeper wound behind the person that kills somebody, obviously. But you're right. Now I do think a lot of hauntings that get attention, don't you think they're the ones that are more sensational? The
of
stories.
Course. And I don't know if that's what we've been presented, what, the people who are holding the, the microphone, what they find interesting, if other things, get glossed over because they're not interesting, we've kind of stumbled on a lot of stuff too. It's like, gosh, how come nobody else has, looked into this?
Yeah.
Or why are we the first people that anyone's brought this up to, or even, it's hard to keep it. I understand there is an element of like, trying to keep it entertaining, and people think that what we do it's not very exciting for most people to watch us with the microfiche, I'm sure. I think it's great, but not everyone maybe wants to watch it. So I understand both sides of, the fence there. I think, and I don't know about you, you'll have to pipe in, but I think that, there's a whole unexplored realm of paranormal stories with, maybe they've been, there's sad elements to them, but there's positivity and healing at the end of the road. And, everyone has to move on. We're all going to, go wherever it is we go. And that, there's spirituality and symbolism and, art and poetry and all of that. But I think I would love to see paranormal shows focus on some stories with conclusions or ending on a little bit of a positive note. That would be interesting.
Right. Absolutely. And like to kind of like segue from that same type thing to like going into like the, like the idea of like cemeteries being haunted or whatever, like just to touch on that, like with what we've seen so far and my own personal belief is that like, okay, so if you're going to be haunting where your body is, I think that's because your death wasn't supposed to happen at that time, whether that was because of something traumatic, suicide, homicide, accident, sickness or something, but that's what you're most tied to. But like, if I were to die tomorrow, would I want to be hanging out in a cemetery by myself? Like, I I don't think so. I want to go where I enjoyed my time and where I have positive memories and like really great experiences and like places that I love, or visit people that I care about. And I think that's a lot of things too, is like you go into this and you're expecting everything to be scary and malicious and negative. And it's really not that case. It's not. We're finding things, and like Hillary mentioned, like, like people are contacting us because we are supposed to help them get to somewhere else, whether that's to be like making that client, more comfortable, or help them get to their own mental resolution with whatever X, Y, and Z. But it's not because they're being attacked. It's just because they don't understand it. So helping them understand it and coach them through that whole process. But like things aren't really as bad or as scary as like the media or TV or all these other outlets are really making it out to be. But like that's what people are fascinated by. So sometimes it's like, are people going to be like watching are people going to watch our YouTube channel and be like, man, this is boring. This had a happy ending. Like, I don't know. But we're just out there and we just want people to understand that it's not always bad.
Well, and it's true. I mean, I can think of a couple stories. I remember there was a tour in Halifax, Nova Scotia that we went on, and there was a spirit of a woman that shows up, and she used to like protect her kids. So she's kind of a protective ghost that kind of shows up and walks up a step, has a lantern. It's like from the 1800s, and it's kind of a sweet story. And I would say that might be a good angle. People might like the idea of helping spirits or ghosts or people returning for a moment to be of help. And they're definitely out there. Like I've said, I've heard that one and some other ones as well. And it probably has we are a culture that's addicted to violence to some degree. And it may have to do how people present it too, though. It's one of those things that I think it could work because it can still have mysterious elements in it. Any story of someone that's on the other side or has died can have some, mystery in it, and people just love mystery, whatever kind of mystery it is, So even maybe proving that someone, I remember Hillary talking on the last show about, proving some of these women spirits were not so evil, kind of vindicating them that. Yeah. So I thought that was an interesting angle. We were talking about women and ghost hunting and biases, I guess. Do you have any thoughts about that, Jessica, about being a female paranormal investigator?
Well, I think, and that's kind of why, and I know Hillary kind of went into this whole, like, how we happened to meet and everything, but like from the first day that we met, we're like, okay, we are going to start a paranormal group that is female-led, and we are going to go out there, girl power, we can do this, we don't need some guy, like, it's important to be comfortable with who you are, have a good head on your shoulders, not be afraid of the darker things that go bump into the night. So we like to bring, like a lot of our girlfriends along with us to kind of get them into this atmosphere as well. And sometimes they do freak out a little bit, poor Cassie. But it's really cool, though, to kind of help with that and full empowerment and kind of lead that movement a bit. Being like a girl-based team is really awesome.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's something that is not had enough attention. And also, I think we talked about it before, a lot of women are interested in this. They go to watch it on TV and they go to paranormal events and things like that. But I'm sure there's still, some resistance in terms of like, the getting on television and things like that. But that's, women are breaking through more and more in that industry. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, at least for me, it's the holiday season, and I've had, certainly losses in my life during this period when people are getting together with families. It's normal to start really missing them even more than perhaps during like Halloween, where people kind of are prepared to kind of deal with the dead. But it can kind of take you off guard a little. And I was wondering if that this is a good time in some ways, especially if people feel haunted by anyone, to really work with sort of helping people to make peace with, death and loved ones that have gone on. And because, we all are going to die, but, we still miss the people that have died.
I love cultures that celebrate, whether it's whatever holiday it is, that celebrate kind of a symbolic and even, kind of embracing it as like a real event that's happening. The return of ancestor or ancestral spirits to like a familial home, or, purposely inviting or setting something up that purposely invites spirits in to participate in festivities that, we're partaking in. And I think that, I personally believe too, just experiences I've had through my life, that there is something about, I don't know, maybe it's the emotional charge or the energy of getting together and that warmth and that feeling that plays into it somehow. But I do believe that people will, or spirits will come back and visit, and they do make themselves known. And that when we do feel that, like, oh, I feel like so-and-so's here, that's real and that's really happening. And sometimes there are like physical validations that can happen. I remember a story from my family, like one of the kids was looking up in the corner and pointing and describing this person or whatever around the holidays and things like that. So I think there is maybe, like I said, the energy, I don't know, the seasons, who knows what it is, but this is definitely a good time, anything. And trying to communicate in a warm way too, offering food, setting a place for someone at the table. I think that's a lovely way. Whatever you do, that's a lovely way to honor people.
That is a really nice way. I know that in Thich Nhat Hanh's books, he says from the Vietnamese point of view, they have a altar all the time of all of their ancestors, and he insisted you have to include the ones you don't like, because he's enlightened, if you ask me. So of course, but he said it's also to find your roots in life, and to kind of know where you're coming from and to have that lineage. And I thought it was a really cool idea. I've read that in other magic books. Like there's an Italian book that even talks about how you can set up a specific altar in there for you could start having more contact with your own relatives that way. But we're getting a little bit off the ghost hunting investigation thing. It's all so tied in though, One of the things I think we probably asked you, Hillary, but I don't know if we did. Did we ask you about having anyone or anything follow you home after an investigation? We're always curious about that, if that's happened to either of you.
What would you say first? I'm curious. Haven't asked you in a while.
Well, so in August, we went up to Sault Ste. Marie in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan for the Michigan Paracon, which is amazing. And my cousin lives up there, and she has a good amount of friends that are Native American. And we spent a lot of our time up there with them. And I wouldn't say anything followed me home, but like the terror of some of these like beings that they have had stories of, and we've seen photographs, like that was scary, and I lost sleep. Did something follow me home? No. But was I afraid to let my dog out at night? Yes. For Hillary, it's a little bit different though, but I think like I'm not as approachable, and they obviously like they can't communicate with me in the same level and extent that one can communicate with Hillary. So I think that leaves them a little bit more like that door's a little bit more open.
I think I'm kind of in general like just very open to everything. This is why like random people in the grocery store tell me their life stories and things. I'm just like very like receptive to everything and whatever. And I think that maybe I even talked about this a little bit last time, that I do think I have to consciously kind of work on like blocking myself a little bit. I think it's my youthful exuberance. It's like, whatever, this isn't going to make me tired. I don't care. Just going at it. Take my energy. It's okay. And the last couple investigations we've done in particular, and they've been challenging ones for other reasons. I do think I have come back very drained. Not that that's so much following me home, or anything like that, but it kind of feels similar to the couple experiences I have had where I felt like I had like an entity follow me home, and it's never been malicious. There were two kind of poignant experiences, and both of the times it was just kind of like I was someplace and I was too open, and something was just checking me out, and it left either, the next day or a couple days later. One time it was significant, the Heston Bueller story, our Harrison Township investigation video. That little girl, I don't know if you've watched that one. There was a little girl, just to keep this brief, a little girl spirit that several other people had seen, and it was kind of a I don't know, serendipitous a moment where we realized that all of these people had seen the same girl with the same description. We found her photo, and it was this whole thing. I had 2 experiences in the kind of unfolding of all of that, where I felt like that was the only time where there was an entity who showed themselves and made it known that they were there for a moment, and that came from an investigation we've done. Otherwise, we've done 30. Yeah. Now we haven't done one since we hit 30. Yeah. And it's been 2. I'm going to count the one as 2 times out of 30 that I felt like that happened. So I don't think, even though I am very open, I do not think that happens as often as people are afraid it does. Period. End story.
Well, that's good to know. I mean, it's just everyone, I think, has sort of unique experiences with that. And I think I've heard that from another medium had said that too as well. But it's curious to ask each person.
Right.
So what have you felt like delving deeper into the paranormal world more, sort of really directly, has that affected you both? Like in terms of how you view the world, in terms of your outer life even? What things how has it impacted you?
Ooh. Do you want to answer first?
Yeah, you go first. I have to think on that one.
I do very much feel like this is still something I kind of fell into, even though we have, this story and this series of events that has led us to where we are today. This, I think, for myself, I don't know what else I would be exploring this in depth at this time in my life. It doesn't feel entirely conscious, but exploring what Jessica and I explore and just, participating in the paranormal community and just this level of, I guess, questioning my existence as a human has had the side effect of enhanced personal development in other areas of my life. And I guess to keep it brief, when you explore this stuff and you're genuinely looking for answers or for truth, it is a very scary roller coaster ride. And it doesn't feel like you can totally get off, because each bit of information, whether it, is something we're debunking or something that we can't explain, has implications. And all of these things stack up. And I feel like existentially, like we're in a place where I'm looking around and it's like, I don't know anything. Well, how do you feel?
So a lot of the stuff, like as Hillary was saying, you find one answer, but then that answer kind of leads you down another rabbit hole. And it's just this continuous trail of more and more and more and more. And it's exhausting, but it's exciting. You know what I mean? Like we think about it 24/7. Are we tired of it time to time? Yes, it can happen. And I think like after, like right now we're kind of on like this like little bit of a break, just because we have so much action cram packed into things, and there's still so much for us to do and just trying to wrap up our recent cases. But it's a lot of fun. And I think like personally, I enjoy the fact that I am more open about things now, that like my coworkers come up and talk to me and tell me their ghost stories. And I think that's cool and that's important, and I enjoy that. And I like that, people that I work with that might not even really be friends of mine, but they're still seeing what I'm doing on social media, and they're starting to be more open about talking about things, and just kind of starting to network everybody together and the whole community outreach, and it's just really nice and pleasant. So like that is like my own personal, like I'm happy that we're doing this, and that's my motivation for everything type.
It's obvious that there's magic happening. We're watching all of this play out, and we're a little bit in awe of all of it. And to watch these little ripples, and, like where people are comfortable talking about these things, and we spend a lot of time at Thanksgiving talking about ghosts, and, it's an interesting ride we're on. But we're in the right spot. We know that.
Yeah, it is a kind of a deep well. I think your resistance was much less than mine as far as the ghost hunting aspect. I've always been interested in metaphysics since I've been a teenager, and healing, but I maybe that's part of it, the journey for at least a lot of people, even people, like I said, I can think of a couple mediums that resisted the whole thing, even doing it for people, and I'm not sure what that's about, but it seems like it's almost part of the path.
I would agree with that. Completely agree. And I think that, the more I talk to other people too, who are developing their gifts or who have been, working as mediums for much longer than I have too, that it is. And, I think that really with anything maybe you choose to do in life that is against the grain in a certain way. Maybe you're always met with that's part of your like hero's journey, you know? And I've kind of tried to embrace that in my own way. I always feel like, oh, I'm an isolated island and those people still don't get it either. And I know that they feel that way too. And that's the connector. But, you know, it's really just if you were to really think of the reality of what it would be like to do this stuff day in and day out, think of that, really put yourself in that situation. Would you really want things to play out like that? Or would you like to, you know, be experiencing those things every day? Would you like to be thinking about this stuff 24/7 every day? It's heavy, you know?
Well, I think that you are younger, and I would suggest that it is good to take a mental break from anything that is so consuming, and you know, where you just go and watch like some kind of silly television, or you go, you know, play hockey, or you do something that is part of the normal world. Because I think that the other worlds in general, whether you're talking about the underworlds or the fairy worlds, they can be really seductive. And I think that's what I've learned. So sometimes I'll try to follow some of the rhythms of the year. So I feel like summertime for me, it's good for me to get out and just do things socially, because it's a northern thing. So when the light is brighter, and this is a time where going into the dark and it's quieter, either to do metaphysical work or going deeper into the underworld is normal. So sometimes that's what you can get kind of consumed in a way that is not really, I think, in the long run going to be good for you.
Right.
And then you make the choice. And I'm not saying it's easy, because it's one of these areas, like you said, you go down one alley and there's a question here, and now you're going down another area and you have this question, and it's not something definitive that you say, okay, now I've discovered this, I'll take a break.
I think that's the nature of it too. And maybe we're asking questions that I don't know we're intended to have complete answers to. And so maybe, even choosing to explore what we explore, we're setting ourselves up for a certain amount of, I don't know, existential disappointment or whatever, just because it's heavy, big, constant, so I think it's just part of it. But that's exhilarating at the same time as it is terrifying. That's why people ride roller coasters. I don't. This is what I do instead, I guess.
Yeah, paranormal roller coaster.
Yeah.
So do you have some plans in the new year as far as what you're planning to investigate, or do you just kind of play it by ear and see what comes up?
So right now, I'm working with a whole bunch of residents who live in our neighboring cities. So after the holidays, their kind of main push for the new year is to do residential, plus they're inside, because Michigan winters are really not pleasant. So, and they're close to home too, so they'll be easy for us to still travel to, even if there's a blizzard. So that's kind of our big push for January, is getting all those dates all secured and locked in place, and to start rolling with that after the holidays.
That sounds good.
We have a couple of videos too, so we have a lot of like backlog footage. Mm-hmm. We have done like 4 or 5 investigations, something like that, since our oh my gosh. Yeah, since our last conversation, and we don't even have videos of those out yet. So we have a lot of indoor work to do.
A lot of catch up, it sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems to be part of the nature of the business too, is because when you're in a spot, you've got to get as much as possible there, because you're not going to be able to go back or repeat exactly what happened.
Now, we talked about this last time, I think, when Hillary was on, but for Jessica's benefit, you are warmly invited to come to LA if the Michigan winters get just a little too brutal.
Perfect.
The weather here is nice, and we know all kinds of haunted places and ghost hunters, so we can keep you entertained for at least a week here in LA, I'm sure, and have some fun. But the other time that's really cool here, and you guys really should do this at some point in your lives, is that end of October, beginning of November, there's a Day of the Dead celebration at Hollywood Forever Cemetery here that's just unreal. And it's massive. Awesome. And people spend weeks building altars and so forth on the graves. And they all dress in Victorian costumes and do face paint. And it's just an unreal cemetery. It's just a fantastic event, and just one of the biggest cultural events in Los Angeles every year. So I think you guys would fit right into that. So if you ever decide to make a pilgrimage to LA, let us know ahead of time, and we'll make sure that you're well taken care of.
Thank you.
Sounds awesome. We can't wait.
It's we've gone twice now, and I probably would go every year if I could. We work on the weekends a lot, and it's just incredibly beautiful and stirring, and really that whole idea of really honoring the dead and welcoming them in, like you were talking about earlier, Hillary. That's exactly what they're doing, and it's great. It's just even if you didn't believe in any of this, a person could really enjoy the art and the costumes and how much work goes into it.
That's beautiful.
So another thing we were talking about a little bit earlier, the idea of the public accepting some of this more openly, but I have heard people also say that, on my Facebook page, some people that are paranormal investigators, when they do tell their friends, they get a funny look. And so even though television is certainly putting it out more, it seems to me it's still not completely legitimized, I guess. There's when it comes down to it, there's still a culture that it's sort of a fringe thing in a sense, working with the paranormal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've gone strides from where we were when I was 13 and watching Ghost Hunters. And I think we've gone immensely far in the right direction, but we're still not there yet. And I don't know if we ever will be there. And, obviously technology has developed so much along that as well. So as technology continues to improve and we have more tools at hand, we might be able to get it to be a little bit more normalized, as well as be able to produce more believable evidence, if you will, because everybody can be a skeptic. But until the technology is there, if it ever will be even in our lifetime, I don't know.
I think it's possible the way, because the inventions are exponential at this point with technology. Mm-hmm. It's crazy what's going on. And we were just watching something where they're putting these nanochips into people it's just unbelievable what they can do. And they're making progress into making us almost like artificial intelligence, and it's already happening. So I think technology, but perhaps, one of the difficulties with, I think, our society is that we don't seem to know how to handle all of the technology yet.
Yeah.
And that would, so for me, for instance, I think that ghost hunting, the technology is helpful, but I still feel really strongly that we should be working on developing the inner skills that come out of the occult, like Rudolf Steiner being able to, building the interior worlds, because they're real. They're and that's where I get a little concerned with the way television presents it largely, not necessarily people doing it on their own.
But I think it's interesting, too, to see some of the experiments that are coming out of, I guess, the new wave of ghost hunting, maybe, too. And what I think they're doing, maybe without even, calling attention to it or in some cases consciously doing it, is putting some of the human element back into paranormal experiments. So where you see the blindfolds and the headphones and the spirit boxes, that relies on the person who's sitting during that session to kind of be the tool in a certain way. And mm-hmm. So what maybe it's just my own thinking, but I enjoy watching the humanity kind of be put back into it, because I think so much of, or at least, certain shows or certain things, definitely wanting to appeal to proving the existence of ghosts to the science people. And that's really never going to happen.
No.
They're never going to come to our camps, and that's okay. We are having these conversations and exploring these things with people who already, have certain beliefs. And it's let's talk about this and distill this and, maybe figure out common ground or whatever. And the other thing I love too is just kind of the cross sections of, people coming together to the Bigfoot people and the alien people and the ghost people who were all, before very separate, mm-hmm. Against each other, groups maybe in capacity, and these communities on the internet and some of these conversations going towards, well, maybe there's a connecting factor here. Maybe we should all work together and we'll, find out more about what we're exploring by, floating some of these ideas together. So there's a ton of ground to cover just on community alone. So I think we don't need to justify that it's cool that that there are still people, exploring this stuff too. So there's so much, ground we haven't covered, so much further to go. So,
and it's interesting, the community now, the paranormal community is building really strongly. I mean, it seems like there's, like I think I mentioned before on the other show, how there's all these little tiny ghost hunting teams throughout the world. If you start going on Instagram just looking, I was so impressed. And they're seriously doing it. And they're not known. They have 200 followers, but you can see they love what they're doing. And some of them have actually great pictures too. And I thought, wow, this is really interesting. And I think perhaps I'm hoping the paranormal community overall will continue to basically get along, because that's not always true in the psychic world.
Yeah, and even I think on the surface sometimes too, there's kind of an advantage to looking like you're getting along when behind the scenes you're not really getting along with anybody too. But that's with anything. Gosh, us coming from the artist community in Detroit, and the music community, there's always people like that, and the competitiveness, and that's what we like to. We have had so much fun, and other groups who are way more established than us have been so generous, allowing us to come along with them. And, we've learned things from them. They've learned things from us. And so it's always in the camp of more boots on the ground, more people in the party. We're going to get more done.
That's true. And I mean, there's always drama with groups, and I'm okay with that, where people will get like annoyed with each other. And we've had that. That's normal. But what I mean is something a little different. Like, just my experience of the psychic reading world professionally, it's really hard to bring them together. It's not even just competitiveness. I don't know what it is. It's like this really strong, like my way, and I know how to do this, and I don't want to necessarily. So it isn't really, it's something else. Whereas, everything has competitive in it. That's just the nature of the beast, right? So, but I so far I'm pretty, optimistic about the ghost hunting paranormal people from, what I can tell. And as a whole, it seems like it's going in a good direction, the community.
That's good.
I really like it because we're able to connect with people around the world that we interact with all the time now, just because of this, that are other paranormal investigators. So not only are we learning things from teens that are just on the street from us, but we're also learning things from different cultures as well, which is really cool. So it's just really fascinating to see how we're able to connect with people globally rather than just locally, to learn and share and exchange knowledge and information and ideas. So it's really awesome. People will send us videos and we'll give their opinion and our opinion and vice versa. So it's really, really neat.
Yeah, and all the different people we've had on, I've just gotten a good sense that that's kind of common in a way, that, you hear them talking about other investigators and working with them, and definitely having some different opinions, but that's going to happen, and that's probably healthy, to tell you the truth. We don't want to all just believe the same thing and not question things. And, one of the things I liked about Craig Owens is he's a true investigator of the stories. So when he goes in to examine a place, he's going to get the facts right about what happened first. And oftentimes there's a lot of mythology around and romance around the death, or so he wants. And I appreciate that about him, because that's what I want to know. I want to know what really happened.
Definitely. And that's been a huge motivator too for us to, learn how to conduct thorough historical research. Because, even in cases where we can't necessarily find like a factual or historical tie to whatever phenomenon or experiences that people who call us in are having, it's very satisfying to be able to say, at least, the history that's available. This is, the facts. This is what we're able to find. And this seems like, you can decide what you like, or, interpret this information however you want to, but this is what we were able to find. That is extremely satisfying.
Yeah, I bet. And have you ever uncovered something that really surprised you?
Everything's just a little.
Yeah, right? What has surprised us? Geez. Well, I think probably, at least for me, is a residential 5-block radius in St. Clair Shores, that there are multiple houses that have similar experiences. And then when you pull up the documents, you can see that wasn't originally all one plot of land that belonged to one family. So I think that is my personal favorite surprise. That's got to be it. That 5 separate families independently contacted us to state, hey, this is what's happening. And I'm like, what's your address? I'm like, oh, surprise, it's your whole neighborhood. Things like that I think is really cool. So we love maps. We love maps, and we love things to trace it down and be like, oh, that's where this house is, and that's where that was, and that belonged to so and so. So finding information like that is like my own personal enjoyment, but
something to add to that. And this is the thing, we're so in it that we don't remember to like provide the context. So what Jessica's referring to there, no, it's okay. We had over the course of several months, totally unrelated people, families who don't know each other, within a very close area. I think it was like a mile or 2 miles square.
It's literally like less than a mile.
Multiple families in this neighborhood contact us within like 2 or 3 months, reporting similar, if not almost exactly the same strange things. And they were just like, I know this is weird, but I saw you guys on Facebook, and it's very close to us. This is in our hometown. And they're like, I just want to know what you think about this, or have you heard anything else? And so Jessica, put together this map and quickly discovered that, these houses kind of made this general shape. And, there's some other to talk about serendipity too. It's like, you can't discount that because, the way that specific event unfolded. And then, later on we get this other call, and this is all still kind of bubbling and developing. But we get this other opportunity to potentially investigate a certain place. And then what we find is, there's this other tie to this crazy unsolved murders in our hometown. And so the possibility that we are being slowly, spiritually, however, led to some very disturbing case that does impact this area is an interesting thing. So I'm surprised that we might be being taken on some
crazy
ride
journey.
here.
Some crazy journey. And it's one of those things too, like we've been working on this for months. And we're going to be working on it for months because it's just such an immense case. And there's so many different parts to it that it's just crazy. And we're like excited and but nervous and slightly terrified as to like what the outcomes of everything could be. I mean, we'll be relieved when everything's all said and done anyways. We just don't know what that future holds at this time, but it's crazy. It really is.
There's weirdness abound. That's all we can really say, I guess.
Got to tell you guys a funny story when you talk about some of the research and stuff and the different experiences but people have. But we had a friend of ours on early in the year that is an intuitive that investigates police cold cases. Troy, I don't know if you saw the show. But he was talking about the serial killer case that he's working on and how the killer checks in with him periodically. And we thought he meant intuitively. But no, the dude actually calls him on the phone to see how his case is going. And I'm thinking,
oh my God!
Yeah. So I think I probably can live without a serial killer calling me on the phone periodically just to check in to see how it's all going and whether he's closing in on him or not. So very strange moment for us.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I only decided to ask him. I said, well, did you mean like intuitively, or is he really calling you? He said, no, he's really calling me. We would have just assumed, oh, he's just, medium and he can do this.
Yeah,
And
oh my God.
he was okay with it. He said, he's just trying to, he's not feeling threatened by him because of his profile, I guess. And it was a really fascinating show, I have to say. It's something he's been doing a while. And he does it more as a passion thing too, I think. And he, obviously that, to work on things like that, I think you have to have a certain kind of, psyche.
I totally agree.
Yeah, I can see where it's good for certain people and certain people it wouldn't be suited for.
Right.
But I suppose if you follow your passions, that's where you end up. That's the thing I tell people with anything. But in metaphysics, if you want to, what am I going to do? Well, just follow your interests. What are you interested in? That's going to take you where you need to go. And of course, like Michael and I, we never thought of coming out to Hollywood. So it just happened. So that's how it is, the journey. And like we were talking about earlier, it's not like this linear journey. You just dive in and just follow it and see what happens.
Yeah.
And it's not a sort of a really clear path. And to tell you the truth, I don't know if it ever is super clear. I just think you get comfortable with certain aspects that seem a little more uncertain. You're like, okay, I'm not sure about this, and I'll just see where it goes. So, like for instance, with the show we're doing, it turns out from the very beginning, for whatever reason, we drew in more paranormal investigators. Like it just happened to work out, and we liked it. And so that's not the only aim of the show, but it's certainly a good part of the show now. And it's something we didn't really plan. We just had such a broad, metaphysics. That's what we're going to do. And that's how it goes, it seems.
There's connections. If everyone will be open, you will find that everyone's got information that's useful and exciting to you. Just listen to them talk.
Yeah, and I'm seeing how, sometimes you do have to be willing to be connected to people from other places and not, and realize, I felt it is weird because, we also talk to spirits and sirens. I don't know if you guys have actually gotten together, but it just ended up that they're also in the same area just by chance as you guys. So for some reason, Michigan is where, we've got a good group there we can talk to now in Michigan. I would have never known that.
Isn't that funny? I know we haven't got to meet up with them yet. We reached out to them. It's totally our fault. We're going to get together with them.
No pressure.
It's so close.
I know. It's crazy. It's crazy. But fall is such a crazy busy time for us. And we reached out right at the peak of fall, which is crazy bonkers. So it got insane, but I feel like that's how it is for everybody that's involved in the paranormal, and it's just crazy. And then my husband and I work at a haunted house, so it's just we have no time for anything right now. But now that things are starting to calm down and the holidays are almost over, I think we'll be able to have a little bit more free time because there's so many groups that we want to meet up with and get together and investigate with, just because there's so many opportunities to learn new things and how people do things differently and see, if it works better for us or whatever.
When you guys come, we'll have a huge super group. It's a super group for you guys ready. So
that'd be awesome. Yeah, I'd be fun to go visit there. I would love it. I'm not coming in the winter though.
No, I don't want you.
Summer,
I don't know if I could survive at my age. Bones really like the heat, as you get older. You could almost have a paranormal convention there in that area. It seems like you've got something starting to really brew there. That's my feeling about it.
Yeah. We have I think the 4th largest pagan population in the country too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense then.
Yeah.
But it must be Michigan too that sort of has that spirit of drawing people there. It's a big mitten,
Yep. I think and I can't remember the list exactly. There are some of the big paranormal people too, either lived in Michigan for a period of time or stayed in Michigan and had a significant experience or came from too. So we do seem to make ghost hunters. So.
Oh, that's an interesting topic. I like that. You birth ghost hunters.
We did. Oh, it's so funny. The video that'll be coming out next. It was a bar, Little Lorraine. We were the employee who had invited us was very, very pregnant. I'm so sorry if I'm not handling this with tact. It was so funny though, but we had the first in utero ghost hunter on this investigation with us, and he was just born. We have to get him a little shirt or something. I agree. So I think he's the youngest ghost. That was
that's cool.
The quickest start of anyone.
That's great. Get started young.
Yep.
You're never too young for it, actually, I think. So, we're getting pretty close to the end. I just wanted to put out your contact information, and it's your website is www.mysticmitten.org. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And it's MYSTICMITTEN for you all that are listening in on the podcast. And you can also find them on Instagram, and it looks like you can basically search the name, although you also have separate handles on Instagram. I don't know if you want to promote those or not, but if you go to the website, it looks like that's a good starting place to get to know you. And of course, your YouTube channel. I really recommend it as far as it's enjoyable to watch, and I really applaud you for putting the time in to make it interesting for people.
Thank you very much. That means a lot.
So I suspect you will, go somewhere with if you keep doing what you're doing. You have the passion and the creativity, and you both are really personable, and the stories are interesting. And I also wanted to compliment you on the interview with it was Lyle, is that his name, the owner, and Alley Cat. He really it was a good interview, just sitting and listening to him talk and really getting him to open up like that. That was really very good, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've been learning how to become little filmmakers and all this too. So, and we love that when people sit down and tell our stories like that, and we can kind of bring that into it. So we're going to be doing a lot more of that. Definitely. We love that. Thank you.
Well, and part of ghost hunting comes from the whole ghost story idea of, my mother didn't tell me the stories that her Irish grandmother told her, but evidently she used to tell very scary ghost stories because she was Irish. and so it's all, I think, taking the time to tell the story in a way like a story is really important.
Definitely. And I'm Irish, so I know we know the sadder the better. So, I mean, if there's death, destruction,
Yeah.
we're all over it. So.
Maybe a little drinking too. I don't know, for the Irish. So thank you so much for coming on again. We're so happy to have this connection and to meet you more here. Again, so thank you so much, and particularly Jessica, since you weren't on last time, for sharing your stories. And we look forward to talking to you and hearing your adventures.
Awesome. Thank you again.
So that'll do us for today. Thank you for watching. Like us if you like us, and go to our website. Michael gave it earlier. Until next time, we will continue to explore the esoteric and the obscure together. Have a great holiday season.